Hello and welcome. My name is Gemstone, and today we are back in Our Life, Beginnings and Always. Now, I know I've said it, I think probably 3 or 4 times before, but this will likely be the actual last stream because last week we finished up our wedding planning in the wedding DLC, so we are actually ready to go. So, hello Sky, welcome. So we're gonna get right into it. How are you doing today? Yeah, so we finished picking our caterer, our cake, our outfits. We've got everything ready to go. And after days, weeks, years of waiting to commit yourself to the love of your life, the morning of your wedding arrived. It was a realization that hit you as you laid in a dark hotel room. You were still half asleep and totally cozy. You weren't able to tell exactly how long you'd been up at that point. You rolled over to check the time. Sat on the side table next to the bed was the stock standard digital clock, flashing the current hour and minute in bright red lines. It was time to get up. At least, it was if you didn't want to be late, or show up to your wedding in pajamas. And thinking of that, it struck you that Cove had to have gotten up as well, if he hadn't woken up even earlier. Reaching over to the table, you got a hold of your phone. Clicking it in showed a string of new messages. So excited for today? Have some painting work to finish so you'll have plenty of time. Heck yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I don't have work today, so we should be able to get it all, even if it takes a little bit extra time, but I don't know how long the wedding itself is going to be and how much is after it, so we'll see how it goes, but I hope you have some fun time painting. It wasn't hard to guess why people might have things they wanted to say to you that particular day, but one name on the list caught your attention over all the others. Cove. He'd messaged you. You opened your chat with him instantly and read each individual text. I'm awake. I want to call you, but I didn't want to wake you up if you're asleep. It's important to have a good night's sleep, especially now. And all the time. You can call me when you want to. I love you. You started grinning before you even finished the set, and by the end your heart had started pounding painfully. Cove brought you joy so effortlessly. Got energy drinks and everything, so I'm ready. Oh boy. You're ready for the long haul, huh? Heck yeah. You tapped at the screen to switch from messages to his contact page, clicking to call. There was already an answer the moment you'd lifted the phone to your ear. Hello? Gemstone? Yeah, it's me. Oh, cool. His tone grew softer, and you pressed the phone closer to hear. Congratulations on your wedding. Good morning. He chimed back happily. Yeah, it is a good morning. It was a lovely moment to share, both mundane and incredibly special in its own way. But then Cove gave a deep sigh. The gentle voice turned to a distant whisper. It's almost time. He brought some levity back to his tone with a joking question. Would it be wrong to say I'd rather go see you instead of getting ready? Yes, Cove. Cove gave an obligatory whine before switching back to his normal pitch. I'll stay here. After making a declaration to be responsible, he stalled there. All right. Yeah. Cove's yeah wasn't directed at anything in particular. He was grasping to fill space, to buy time while he sorted out his thoughts. We're getting married. I'm going to marry you. The gravity of the occasion fell on Cove heavier and heavier as he vocalized it. My stomach hurts. Cove. You weren't able to say another word before he sucked in an audible breath. I have to go. Right now. I'm getting nervous. It's gonna get worse. But I want to do this. More than anything else. Your heart went out to the man you loved. You knew how these events were a struggle for him. There was a gasp as he finally let out the air he'd been holding in. Bye. I love you. It'll all be okay, Cove. Or I love you too. I love you too. Without letting his determination lapse, alcove ended the call. As short of an exchange it was, hearing his voice had been such a nice way to start the day. You knew you'd made the right choice to not fully separate. There was no point in lingering, and you slipped out of the bed. You had places to be and people to see. Your clothes were hanging up against the door of the small hotel closet, and you went over to check over the outfit. You gave your arms a good stretch, feeling pleased with the assessment. Everything felt perfect. From there, you went into the bathroom to brush your teeth and shower before anything else. Once clean and dry and half-dressed, you went back out into the main space of the hotel room. You carefully took your wedding dress off the hanger. Oh, dressed and do hair, dressed yourself but you had a stylist coming to do hair, dressed and do hair and makeup, dressed and do your hair but had a stylist for your makeup. Wait, stylist for hair and makeup, do makeup, have stylist for hair, do hair and have stylist for makeup, dress, doing hair and makeup. Okay, so I don't really do my hair much at all, and I don't do any makeup, so I would probably get like, I don't know if I would wear makeup, maybe to like pop in the pictures a little bit, like eyelashes and stuff, but you were going to have to get dressed and do your hair, but you got a stylist for your makeup. My hair's short, so it's just like making sure it looks nice, but might get some professional help with the makeup because I do not have experience. It wasn't going to be much longer until they were supposed to arrive. You had to make sure you stayed on task. You needed to be ready on time. During the flurry of preparation, the stylist arrived. You used the landline to call down to the lobby so the stylist could get permission to come up and join you in the room. You got yourself tucked, zipped, and buttoned into your relaxed dress, with a series of rapid, but not especially loud knocks. When a series of rapid, but not especially loud knocks struck the door. Only a few people could come to the room without approval, and the sound was not Cove. There wasn't any of his usual notable pauses between knocks. That left one other main option, he thought as he went over to answer the door. Ah! There on the other side was your partner in this wedding journey, Baxter. His outfit looked as though he'd reverted back to his teenage self. It was all black. But you were aware that staff would be dressed from top to bottom in dark shades, to be recognizable to the guests as employees, and not as possible long-lost cousins twice removed. That will not be possible at my wedding. It's gonna be like only my direct family. Hello, and a very good morning to you. Hi, good morning. You look incredible already, but don't fret, I won't interrupt the process for long. I'm here to check in. Is there anything you need? You wouldn't happen to have a Cove on you somewhere? Everything's good here. The curve of his smile pulled ever so slightly higher. Wonderful. Though, let me add, I also came in order to keep you informed on the wedding's status. Oh? A hopeful bent came through in your tone. Yes, the status is, it's ready when you are. It should go off without a hitch. Don't say that, nothing's perfect. That was music to your ears. You were so grateful Baxter had gone to as much effort as he had for this. With absolute earnestness, Baxter wished you well. Oh my goodness. Take care, Gemstone. I'll let you return to your preparation now. Bye. Thanks for coming. The light-hearted mood of wedding work swept back in with no further distractions. Would I get my nails done for my wedding? I also don't ever have my nails done because I don't like how it feels, but it can be really pretty. I guess stylist did your nails could mean just like a professional cleanup of them, but probably just clean up. They're normally just long until they break off. But they don't grow like too long, so short. Like comparatively, they're not like giant spikes or anything. You placed yourself in front of the mirror and got to work on your hair. Then the stylist got to work on your makeup. There was a time investment, however, the look did eventually come together. The clothes, your hair, and makeup was all set to what had been planned for the day. You glanced down at yourself, fully dressed to get married. Whew. You did a happy twirl. And then the moment arrived. You didn't have to wait any longer. I did a twirl because my dress is probably swooshy. Your wedding was about to begin, and Cove would be there when you arrived. You took a deep, steadying breath and stepped out into the hallway. After you also yawned for the morning, apparently. Rapidly, you made your way to the elevator and took it down to the lobby floor. It didn't take you very long to weave across the hotel lobby and exit through the front doors. Outside, you immediately spotted the rental car that was set to bring you to the poppy field. Closing your eyes, you got comfortable and enjoyed the ride. There was plenty of legroom. Glancing out the window, your eyebrows raised in surprise, because you recognized just how far you were from the poppy field. Because you recognized just how far you were from the poppy field. Like, in a short distance. It would only be a few more minutes until everything you'd been working towards would finally come to fruition. Oh, nothing felt real at all. Chewing at your bottom lip, you questioned if this really was a dream after all. Baxter wasn't kidding earlier when he said that the hotel was near the ceremony. The trip was already over, and there wasn't another second to spare. Good, no time for the nerves to build up. Well, I guess except for the whole preparation, but when you're busy, it's fine, but when you're waiting, you're ready to go, and you're just waiting. Oh, that's the worst part, so heck yeah. Carefully, you exited the car, went forward, and finally took in the first sight of your ceremony. Ah, the field of white linen poppies. Warm rays of sun drifted down on you as floral-tinged gusts of wind came out from over the expansive hill. It was soothing. That's so many chairs. Beyond the chairs for guests was an arch bursting with leaves and flowers as if it had sprouted from the ground itself. Everything was aglow. Even the petals of each individual poppy seemed to sparkle more than usual. Gemstone. Your planner had immediately been informed of your arrival and came to greet you right on schedule. How good to see you again, and so soon after the last time. He tilted his head in your direction casually while chuckling. Your attempt to laugh along with him came out more like a strangled hiccups. Your nerves still had a complete chokehold on you. Luckily, Baxter understood completely and offered a reassuring smile. "Oh, he looks so soft." Then there it goes. Then all presence of casualness for the day left Baxter's poise. A bright fire lit up his dark eyes. It's showtime. Let's get into our proper positions. Guests are already being directed to open chairs in the audience area. Gemstone, please go back further with me so you can be ready for the aisle walk. I'll send Cove over next. On the promise of being reunited with Cove, you let yourself be led away by Baxter. You only had to hold on a little longer, then you'd get to see him. You went back down the bend, and there was an eager hastiness, to your pace. A corner was turned, separating you off from the main scene. Good luck, Gemstone. I'll congratulate you when it's over. Baxter trusted you enough to handle the rest, and waved coyly over his shoulder as he left. He had to handle more of the arrangements behind the scenes, so that you and Cove could have your spotlights. You stood there alone, foot tapping, resisting the urge to pace. You'd never been more grateful for how quickly Baxter worked, when only a minute later you heard someone approach. At long last, what you'd been anticipating came to be. You saw him again. Ah! Cove Holden. Oh, he's so cute! The last name rung especially strong in your mind, because soon it would be yours too. Without a word, Cove lifted his arm for you to take. His blue eyes were crystal clear, and you could see your future together sparkling within them. Seeing him like that, completely ready to marry you, was breathtaking. You wrapped your arm with his gleefully, creating a secure link. The touch coaxed one of his precious wobbly smiles onto his face, though he still couldn't say a full word. While waiting in the wings, footsteps, the distant chatter of a crowd, the heavy breathing of your partner, and your own heartbeat pattered in your ears. Your eyes closed as you strained to hear the cue above the rest of the noise. But there was no need. You knew the moment had arrived when everything in the distance went silent. It even felt as though your heart froze in place, not wanting to be the one thing to interrupt. The first note was struck. Cove's hold on you tightened into a trembling squeeze, and that was all you needed to move forward. You began to walk forward with the love of your life. He was right there by your side. His legs were shaking too, and from the corner of your eyes you could see his cheeks were wet with heavy tears. Oh, his wobbly smile is bad. Oh, what key was it? M? H. There we go. Not me just getting it. Oh. Not me just getting a screen grab for the thumbnail. Anyway. You smiled softly, with tears gathering in the corners of your eyes. You watched as his mouth opened and then closed, as if he was speaking to you. Though, if he was saying actual words, they were too quiet for you to hear. The crowd was full of joyous smiles and loving glances, but no one made a move to distract you or Cove away from each other. You wouldn't have noticed if they had tried. All you were aware of in the entire world was the wonderful man holding desperately onto your arm. And how, on one of your shared strides, his knee locked and Cove stumbled. Oh. You rooted yourself in place, pulling up against Cove to keep him from falling completely. He leaned into you, and you both swayed to the side, but he stayed on his feet. Oh no, if he had walked up the aisle, would he have completely tripped? If he had walked up alone? Oh, I'm so glad we decided to go together. Poor baby. The two of you straightened yourselves out and kept going. You were equally committed to reaching the end of the aisle. It may not have been graceful, but to you, it was beautiful. And you made it. When you arrived, you loosened your hold on one another to change positions. You stood in front of him face to face. Softly, Cove's lips parted again. And finally, that time you knew what it was. Your name. Gemstone. He lifted one hand to wipe tears from the crinkle of your eye. He brought his head lower to be closer to yours, still caressing your face, even after those tears were gone. Oh. I genuinely don't know if I'll cry or not. I mean, probably. I would like to say, no, I'm put together, but I think you can be put together and cry. Brand new tears of joy fell, and you pressed your forehead against his. It couldn't be helped. The delicate way he held you only made your emotions swell more. But you embraced it, nuzzling against the one person who impacted you in such a way. A hush came over the crowd as the justice of the peace began to speak. It was time. The ceremony speech flowed over you. You listened to each word, but sentences faded out of focus the second they had passed. It was like having a dream. Thoughts and feelings in your own mind held far more weight than anything outside of it. Yeah, I figure that it's entirely possible I won't be able to remember much of my own wedding because I'll be so, lost in my head. Stuff, big events like that are just a blur to me, which is kind of sad, but also, it is what it is. That's why you get photos. What did break through to your were Cove's bashful gestures, shuffling feet, quivering eyes, a palatable nervous energy that was barely swallowed down. Not one single movement went by unnoticed. Okay, but maybe this screenshot. Before you could completely lose yourself in Cove's gaze, your attention crystallized in an instant. The justice of the peace had said vows. Whoops, we weren't paying attention. It struck Cove as well, because his knees visibly locked from underneath him. In slow motion, he began to tip backwards. Don't lock your knees, that's how you pass out. You instinctively grabbed onto his wrists, pulling on his sleeves in an attempt to keep your beloved from leaning further. Cove regained control of his legs and caught himself by anchoring back on the ball of his right foot. He kept that firmly planted. He was still so absorbed in the moment that the notion to be embarrassed by his near faint didn't take up any space in his mind. It was as if it hadn't happened, at least for Cove. The justice of the peace, however, lifted a brow, assessing if your groom was physically capable of completing the ceremony. I guess that's something I didn't really think of. I bet some people do pass out on their wedding. I just realized I've never seen any videos of that, I don't think. For all his trembling, Cove stood stiffly, a pillar that could not be moved. It was enough to appease your justice of the peace into continuing. The couple has chosen to prepare their own vows, and they will share them now. Cove Holden, please begin. He took in a long breath through his nose. After so much build-up to the wedding, and a large yawn, and all the effort that it took to create it, this was the final hurdle for him, articulating his deepest feelings about you out loud. And boy is it a hurdle. This kid struggles. Cove looked into your gold eyes, searching for the words he needed. You waited, impressing as much encouragement as you could into your gaze. Finally, Cove began his vows. Gemstone, we met when we were 8 years old. I had just moved to Sunset Bird with my dad. I saw you the first day I was there, and you changed everything in my life. You were the person I needed when I was so little and so lonely, and you still are the one I need right now. Every far-off image playing out in his mind brought further joy to Cove's features. He laughed nostalgically. You didn't let me get away with being selfish when I would act out. You were the one there for me when I was actually upset. I got to have a childhood thanks to you. You didn't let me lose it all because I was sad. I had someone I could make those memories I cherish with. Making sandcastles, watching the clouds, catching fireflies, and everything else. But then puberty happened and so many things seemed harder than before. I'm definitely glad you were around to help me survive it all. That was the time I started sneaking out to visit you through the window. People are gonna think. Don't say that. I wanted to be with you when I was happy, or when something was wrong. I couldn't stay away. Lucky for me, you didn't mind spending your days or nights in my company. Cove, what are they gonna think? Oh man. With a light touch of wistfulness, Cove recalled experience after experience from those years. Going on trips together, big ones and small ones. Just hanging around our houses in the neighborhood. Talking about who we were as people. As he continued to reminisce, he chuckled adorably. And I started getting closer with your family, too. Well, at least with your moms. Elizabeth wasn't exactly interested in being good friends when we were teens. I really appreciate that you always put up with my dad and his wild plans, by the way. Cove ran a hand down his face tiredly, though the amused smile on his face wasn't wiped away. And speaking of wild plans, I sure got upset when you told me about how my dad offered you $20 to be friends when we were kids. Huh. I feel bad now that I yelled at him. He wasn't trying to make things worse. It just meant a lot to me that the relationship between us was our own. I hated thinking about all the things outside of my control. All the ways the world was bigger than I knew. But I'm glad that I had the chance to talk with him about it in the end. And that we got to talk about it too. Thanks for being honest about it. I can still remember how badly I wanted to be a grown-up man as an awkward tween. Then, suddenly, we graduated high school, and it really was time to be an adult. Getting my first job, taking my first long drive without parents, accepting how small our little town was in the grand scheme of things. Just trying to figure out I was even going to do with my life. Hi, potato, welcome. Humana, awooga, arf, orf, orf. Hiya, potato. How are you doing today? I'm doing pretty well, and yourself? Sorry for missing the last streams. Life's be busy. Ah, valid. Bit tired, but good right now? Heck yeah. I was lost, and all I wanted was to make sure I didn't lose what mattered when things had to change. Most of all, you. You were my special someone. That was when I had fallen in love with you. You were the first person I was able to open up to about my sexuality when I finally knew for sure what it was. And you were the one who helped me keep it together when I was overthinking things. His speech of all that he treasured about you went on and on in an uninterrupted stream. He couldn't stop himself. You'd let me have tastes of your food, and you always gave the best gifts. Oh, you Sky. And also, Jem, you made him wait so long for love. Way. Listen, he needed to build up the courage. I gave him the time he needed. I feel like that's important. It took so many years. Sometimes it does. You miss so many moments. Wow. Oh. I mean, that just gives everyone watching a chance to go and support the developers by playing their game and checking out the path from the very beginning with a childhood crush. Game support. Heck yeah. I've played it 17 times. Heck yeah. You can con me into play more and I'll still do it. Oh. You can't con me into playing more? I'll still do it? Heck yeah. Do it. You love me, even though I'm not a cool merman who could take you on a magical adventure. Oh, you mentioned that. Anyway, I'll shush. You can enjoy your game. No need to shush. We're all here to experience this together. And you lived with how long it took for me to be able to do anything romantic. I was feeling a lot and didn't do great at managing it. But I was so clingy too. I never wanted to be apart then. I think I'm a little bit more of a big boy about it now. Maybe? You just... He at long last stopped to breathe, before his emotion-driven attempt to convey himself continued in full force. You make me happy in ways no one else ever could. My dream came true when I got to be your actual, for-real boyfriend. And well, a lot has happened, huh? We're definitely adults. We're at our own wedding. We made it through it all. All the months and months growing up. And through making this day happen. Though with how nervous I was, I think I might have worried that the planner that I would convince you to just elope to get away from it all. But you took the pressure in stride. I love that you're so reassuring. You're such a charming human being. It was the happiest moment of my life when you accepted my proposal. Until now, anyway. I couldn't believe you wanted to be with me as much as I wanted to be with you. I didn't want to try to imagine how many tears you've wiped away for me in all these years. You helped me have the confidence to grow into a man, and you can still make me feel like a kid again. Aw, that's so cute. With you, nothing ever really ends. It just begins in a new way. Oh. Don't mind me doing a screen. That's just kind of a profound statement to me, I guess. And basically, what I'm trying to say is, no matter how hard I try, I can never thank you enough for being mine and letting me be yours. Aww. Cove wept heavily, no longer able to stay above the wave of emotions that opening himself up so fully had wrought. I love you so much, Gemstone, and... He futilely wiped a sleeve against his eyes. Every tear the fabric caught was immediately replaced. Those are my vows. I don't know how you're supposed to end them. I hope you'll marry me. You were so touched by his words, and you were crying too. Thank you, Cove. Gemstone, you may say yours. The justice of the peace had all but disappeared from your mind. All that you had been aware of was Cove. But that request couldn't be ignored. Now you would have to take on the endeavor of explaining everything Cove was to you, and everything he'd been to you throughout knowing him almost your entire life. You chose to say, I adore that you're so open with your emotions. I don't know, it's how you rub your arm when you're nervous, how excited you get about food. I love your wavy eyebrows, your laugh and your smile, how easy you are to fluster and how clingy you are, the awkward way you try flirting, and the way you're somehow always a bit of a mess, and simply you in general. I want to thank you for remembering things about me, even stuff that wouldn't matter to anyone else. It matters a lot to me, for really getting to know me, and for loving me for me. And besides that, I promise to never stop trying to make you happy, to cherish everything you've given me, to comfort your anxieties when you're scared, to continue letting you have tastes of my foods, to love you even as we both continue to grow and change, to wipe your tears when they fall, to wait as long as you need for everything, to always leave a window open for you. Cove's blush had crept all the way up to his neck after you let yourself get carried away, listing every detail about him that charmed you. Oh yeah, I guess I'm picking a lot, huh? You're my beloved crybaby. Wonderful man, precious ocean boy, sunshine soulmate. You're my Cove, and I'll be there for you no matter what. Oh my gosh. Cove covered his face with trembling hands. He was laughing, crying, and all around about to pass out again. Your justice of the peace nodded contently, accepting those vows as your sworn oath to your very nearly husband. Cove Holden, do you take Gemstone Hoseki to be your lawful wedded wife? He let his hands fall, ready to face you directly. Cove's shaking, dripping wet eyes stayed locked onto yours. And in the adorably cracking squeak you knew so well, he answered, That wasn't cracking. I do. It was absolutely heart-stopping, but your turn to respond had come. And do you, Gemstone Hoseki, take Cove Holden to be your lawful wedded husband? I do. Cove's smile was radiant, and his tears were constant. You'd sincerely made him happier than anything else ever had. And then the ring bearers stepped forward. They each held out a small box that contained a wedding band. Oh my gosh, they're getting mayor of age. Good for them. Indeed, Sky. 'Tis time. Cove's hand shook as he reached out for the tiny treasure chest. With a focused furrow to his brow, he accepted the gold ring, and the green emerald sparkled gorgeously in the light. You gladly offered your hand to Cove. He cradled it gently in one of his own. For a few seconds, all he could do was stare at your skin. Cove was so still for a moment, but then he used his free hand to bring the band towards your fingertip. Ah! He carefully slid the ring to its proper place on your finger. Oh, it's a little, crown hearts dip ring. That's so cute. Your gaze locked onto it, utterly amazed. Swallowing thickly, Cove raised his hand out for you. You held it in return and brushed your thumb across his palm. It was your turn. With that, you retrieved the matching ring from its box. It slid onto Cove's finger beautifully. He gasped under his breath, fixating on the ring. You tenderly squeezed his hand, and Cove finally met your eyes again. He held your gaze with an electrifying stare. You were in awe of the whole moment. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of California. Why does That sounds so lame. Sorry. I just by the state of California, by the power vested in me. Oh man, sorry. California bringing families together. And by the power vested in me by the state. I'm so sorry. Oh man, I've got to know what they're saying ahead of time when I get married. Oof, sorry. Just everything that I know about California is like, pfft. Yeah, okay. The power vested in you. All right. By California? Yeah, sure. Okay. Sorry. I'm just gonna skip that part. I can't even start to read it. I pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss. You can if you want to. Oh, can we? Oh man. Sorry, quick yawn. Co's knees may have started knocking together once more, but his gaze was nothing but eager. You reached for each other in a loving kiss. His lips brushed against yours ever so sweetly. He indulged in the touch, caressing your cheeks at the same moment. You leaned into his hands welcomingly. That doesn't make much sense as a clap, clap, clap for the couple. Thanks, Sky. A round of applause. Clap, 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 clap. You used the thumb to carefully push away the tears still clinging to his eyelashes. After, your face shifted away just a hair's breadth, so you could see one another fully. His expression was wholly adoring, and you could still feel his warmth lingering. His face, dies. No, you've got to stay alive to see more. The crowd erupted with cheers and applause around you. Giddy, you ducked your head towards Cove's shoulder and laughed. Peeking over at Cove, you realized that he was barely paying any attention to the jubilance around you both. Instead, his gaze was solely fixated on you. He gently took your hand. You interlaced your fingers with his and took a deep, steadying breath. His skin miraculously seemed to blush even redder at that. Okay, why was I imagining you interlace your hands and then like raise them up like a victory at a wrestling match? Winner! Pretty sure that's not what they do. I won! I got him! Anyway, you went down the aisle gleefully. As you passed by your friends and family, you caught several thumbs up, proud nods, and cheery waves. Some were even still clapping. Sniffling, your vision threatened to fill with tears after witnessing more than a handful of people dabbing their eyes with tissues. When you briefly came close enough to Mr. Holden, he patted Cove on the shoulder. Despite his weepy expression, you could tell that he had the greatest pride for his son. You smiled. Your cheeks hurt so much that you honestly wouldn't be surprised if your face was stuck permanently this way. And it'd be worth it, because so far today was better than you could have ever imagined. After leaving the ceremony in late afternoon, it was time for wedding photos. You and Cove met up with the photographer, while the other guests headed over to the reception spot. The excursion was filled with fun and laughter, while the photographer set out to get ideal shots. The ideal shot. Cove lovingly held your face, not afraid to show his affection in front of the camera for a change. His thumb brushed lightly across your cheek, and then he pressed his forehead to yours. His breath was warm on your skin, and you closed your eyes shut to relish in his love. When he pulled away, you were speechless, but you also had a feeling that was going to be one of the best shots of the lot. When the sun began to set about an hour later, you knew it was time to rejoin with everyone else. And so you eagerly got back into the car again to finally see the second location. Whoa! They got a full tent, they got speakers, they got chairs on the sand. This is cool. This is expensive. Holy crap. Look at all those bottles of champagne and wine and stuff. The beach is rich. And only the finest for adorable jelly beans. Yeah. Yeah, apparently he got a full white suit. We got all this set up. Goodness gracious. Fresh flowers and everything. Fairy lights, the whole shebang. We must be reached. You and Cove took a turn down the main path. There, your friends and family were patiently waiting for this moment. All for $9.99, and if... and you get it if you call right now, in 1987. $9.99 in 1987 is still... not much. I can't grammar, me neither, so... yeah. No biggie. $9.99 grand. Okay, maybe $9,999. I'm not very adept at wedding costs, but I have seen a couple wedding shows like years ago, and this is not cheap. Oh boy. We had a planner, we did months of prep, like bruh. Woof. You and Cove took a turn down the main path. There, your friends and family were waiting patiently for this moment. The room filled with familiar cheers, whistles, and applause at your arrival. As the noise lessened, you began to hear various calls of congrats and welcome backs. The love emanating from your friends and family was palpable. Baxter made his way to the center of the area and began to gesture people back. The rest of the staff followed his lead and made space in the crowd. When the path ahead cleared out, you took a deep breath. It was time. Oh yeah, the beginning note of your first dance song played. You heard a few of the guests speak in hushed tones, anticipation rising as the melody kicked in. It was moderately paced. Cove met your eyes, as ready as he could be, and you took his hands. You heard the high-pitched whine of a microphone, and saw Baxter smiling. And now the couple will have their first dance. While your legs were shaking from all the acute emotions still lingering from the... I can speak? While your legs were still shaking from all the acute emotions still lingering from the ceremony, your joy from getting to dance with your husband gave you the strength to make your way to the dance floor. Cove did his best to keep up with the cadence of the track. Every so often, he'd have to take a cautious glance down to make sure he wasn't about to crush your toes. You did well enough for your level of dancing experience. With Cove's hands in yours and your feet moving to the beat, you reveled in moving across the floor. You were doing it. You were dancing. This entire experience was amazing. Before now, you would have doubted that you'd ever be dancing this freely. But here you were, flowing to the music with your husband on your wedding day. The two of you gallivanted across the floor, hearts pounding and expressions bright. Partway through the dance, the music reached its slowest part. The dance for this section was simple and allowed you a chance to prepare for the more complicated steps coming up. Cove took a second to speak softly to you, leaning in just close enough that you could hear him over the music. This is the first moment to ourselves since even before the wedding. Cove clearly was grateful for the chance to finally talk to you. You're beautiful. You too. He truly looked divine in his suit. Cove flushed a light rosy pink and beamed at you. Should we bring up the Orca fundraising dinner? What's the difference? Wait, did he come over after or something? This makes me think of that night of the Orca fundraiser dinner. Cove's expression came wistful with old memories. I was thinking of that too. Oh. I remember exactly how it felt, dancing with you years ago. I had a lot of hopes then. Oh, we danced at that. I forgot. I wanted it to last forever, but I also desperately wanted to skip ahead so that I'd know what things would look like for us in the future. And now we're actually here. We made it. Cove sighed dreamily as he looked into your eyes. Thank goodness the ceremony is over and we can just be married now. I was not expecting that squawk. I really hope you guys heard that. Oh my gosh. Apparently I'm in a giggly mood today, but man, that was that was good. Not that the wedding is bad. He winced as soon as he realized how his words sounded. He shook his head. No, I totally get the nervousness. I just kept thinking that I'd ruin something, or something terrible would happen. At this point, a truck full of apples could come through and destroy dinner, and I wouldn't care. Now that would be something to remember. Well, this whole thing is something to remember. You're so adorable. You were glad that this man was yours to keep. He was the cutest. Then the music reached a bridge of the song with complex choreography. Both of you had to focus more on the dance. That stopped your conversation in its tracks. The two of you became absorbed into dancing once more, as the song's end grew closer and closer. The final note was struck, and... ooh! Landing the final step or spinning flourish. We've got to do a spinning flourish so the dress poofs. The dance ended in a spinning flourish. The two of you pulled each other close and twirled together. The wind blew past your face, and you both started giggling like children. Faster and faster you spun, until you ran out of breath from your joyful laughter. Cove's lips brushed over your ear. You're really a good partner. Your face felt hot, and it wasn't only from the dancing. You heard a clap that steadily transformed into wild applause. Turning to face the crowd, you looked over your friends and family cheering. Ah. You curtsied. You gracefully curtsied to your audience, keeping your back straight and knees low. The clapping got louder. Tilting your head back to your husband, you caught his proud smile. Cove continued to watch you, rather than switching his attention to the guests. He twisted his wedding band bashfully around his finger. With the first dance done, you both left the open floor to join the others and properly greet your seated guests. Cove offered you his arm to take once more. You took a hold of his arm. Your arm wrapped around his, fitting as snugly together as matching pieces of a puzzle. It was a hold that could not easily be broken. Physically and legally linked to the other, you and Cove went forward as one. After only a few strides, you'd arrived at the nearest table in the arrangement. It had close family all the way around, including your mom and Ma. The two had scooted their chairs closer and were eagerly whispering to each other, trading words of excitement back and forth. Feeling awkward about having to interrupt, though realizing there's no reason to feel that way, Cove cleared his throat to announce you are in his presence. Hi. Oh, cute wedding dresses. Snapping out of their private fervor, your parents turned the enthusiasm straight towards the two of you. Yeah, we should hug them. You went between them to give the two a hug from behind. They leaned into your shoulders, returning the embrace. After keeping hold long enough to be warmed up by the shared body heat, you let go in order to stand up straight. Kiddos, it's great to finally get to talk to you today. Ma folded her hands together on the tabletop daintily and followed Mom with her own greeting. Congratulations to you both. It's so good to see you today. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Of course. The ceremony was a memorable one. Those vows, huh? You also nailed the theming with that venue. It was truly unforgettable. All the effort paid off then. Hearing people actually discuss the wedding as a real event, Cove became tongue-tied. Your ma watched over the both of you with a gaze as doting as it was knowing. Have fun greeting everyone else. We'll be here if you need us. Lonnie's right. We can entertain ourselves while you're busy with your big day. Did I switch them around? Ma is this one, right? Yeah. Whoops. Thank you so much. You're welcome, but we're happy to. Oh, he's standing over here. Thanks again. Mom's? Oh. Ma's fingers squeezed together even more tightly. a visual representation of the restraint she was exerting not to cheer inappropriately loudly. While Ma attempted not to spook Cove after his tepid attempt to use the new title, Mom had no qualms saying something embarrassing. Woohoo! We got upgraded. It's about time. Pam. Cove's gaze immediately dropped to his feet, and his near constant flush from the day reappeared. You gave your husband a reassuring pat on the arm, proud and pleased at his braveness. Oh, my husband. Okay, bye. Aw. Cove scuttled off, needing an escape, and you gave your parents a wave as you stuck by him. Goodbye. Good luck out there. Your and Cove's moms resumed their schoolgirl-style chatting in a good cheer. Located at the same table were Cove's parents, they were taking it easy, until Cliff noticed you and Cove had eyes on him. His grin ramped up to 1,000 watts. It's our local celebrities of the day. The wedding's been going so smoothly, your planner's a real pro. Though, if there's anything an average guy like me can do for things, just give me a shout. Cove brightened in a similar way. His tone was full of affection for his father. Hi, Dad, and thanks. Let's give him a hug. You walked around the table to give him a hug. It was tricky to weave through the space, but you were able to get an arm's reach of Cliff. He opened up his arms wide for you, and then squeezed you back. Soon you had to get out from behind chairs and other guests, so you let Cliff go and nudged your way over to Cove again. Cliff slyly winked, waving you and Cove off. I don't have to hug you. Everyone wants to see you. Okay, see you later. He's gonna cry. Bye, Dad. Say it. Yep. Heck yeah, potato. A loud gasp escaped Cliff. That's what we want. Yeah. You glanced over at Cove for his reaction. He grinned sweetly with misted eyes, agreeing wholeheartedly with your statement. Of course Mr. Holden would like me to say that. Now all that was needed was to see if you'd get Cliff's own acceptance. You didn't have to wait long for it. Overwhelmed with emotion, his voice squeaked at first, but he barely noticed. He was beaming with joy. Of course. I don't know how I ended up with 2 kids as good as you. I thought he would cry, but good on him. Cliff surveyed his 2 children proudly, with his chest puffed out. Something about his name just really slips me up. I have to say, well, actually, I'll say it a little later. You'll have to wait for my big speech. Here it comes. Get ready, Gemstone. Come on, sport. It's gonna be great. Now go on. Thank you for being here all these years. I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else. Then, finally, you rounded the table's edge and reached to the side where Kyra sat. She was patiently sipping at a steaming cup of coffee, placing it down when she noted it was time for the meet and greet with the 2 of you. Hey, Mom. Oh, her dress matches Cove's hair almost. Ah, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. Milf. Anyway. Hello, babies. I had to permit the term MILF. Oh, that's good. Oof. You leaned over to give her a big hug. It took some stretching, but you were able to gain enough access to Kyra's space in order to give her a solid hug. She put her arms around your shoulders gladly. Let's go. She built like Athena? Yeah. And the shading on the dress, the style of the folds is so good as well. Adorable. It took some stretch. Oh, right, I already read that. You shared that affectionate touch for a moment, and then shifted yourself back up. Thanks for coming. It's really nice to see you. It's fantastic to be here. This has been wonderful. Also, that was a marvelous dance. Such an incredible way to make an entrance. Cove kicked the tip of his shiny shoes at nothing in particular, and his shoulders shifted from side to side shyly. Cove was forever incapable of seeming like a full-grown man in front of his mom. Kyra's brows bent as she looked on at him adoringly. But then she shut her eyes and brought out more energy. I'll see the two of you again soon. You should go explore the rest of your exquisite reception. Oh, alright. We probably should do that. Bye. Bye, Mom. She froze for a split second. Her hand flew to her mouth as her gaze landed back on you. Slowly she lowered it, revealing the widest smile you'd ever seen on her face. In her gentlest tone, Kyra cooed, "Goodbye, baby." Oh. Cove was positively melting from happiness seeing you and your shared mom speak to one another that way. Oh. Well, don't say shared mom. That's kind of weird. You're wonderful, Kyra. And so are you. Then you had to continue on to the next table in the seating arrangement. There were still guests waiting to see the both of you. You had a pleasant conversation with your aunt and uncle on Mom's side. They couldn't have been more pleased that you had found someone who made you as happy as Cove did. Right by was their daughter, your cousin, as well as your older sister. They were throwing looks, not so subtly waiting to speak their piece, but didn't interrupt your chat with other family. Oh, cute! Heck yeah! But when it was officially their turn, the ladies placed down glasses of juice and put on matching curved smiles. They look so good. Yeah. The sprites, this game, so pretty. Indeed. Cove shifted on his feet embarrassedly. Embarrassedly? I don't think I've ever had to say that out loud before. Embarrassedly. They didn't even need to say anything. You went over to hug them around the sides. You were able to shimmy around the furniture to get yourself behind both. You then wrapped your arms across their backs. Lee squished against you while giggling, and Liz gave a true big sibling ruffle on the top of your head. I'm not a huge hugger, but I feel like on a day like this, everybody will remember the hug that you give them. Or, like, at least they'll appreciate it a lot in the moment, that you, like, took the time to go and make contact and acknowledge them, and, you know. For anyone in your family who likes hugs, I feel like it's kind to hug them today when they really need it, you know. After the embrace, you slipped out from between them to head over to Cove again. The day went by so fast. It's hard to believe it's evening, and this is the first time we've been able to talk directly. Says even Liz's voice. Totally! It's so amazing to finally get to see you. Well, I saw you before in the ceremony, but now you're really here with us. You're both beautiful, and it was just touching and amazing and perfect. Oh man, I am not used to talking like that, in case you couldn't tell. Cove laughed airily. Lee's energy levels were as high as ever. Hello to you too. You must be relieved there were no accidental drownings with those waterworks going off during the ceremony. Lee couldn't suppress a snicker. Cove, on the other hand, pouted indignantly. To be serious for a moment, you sensitive souls did very well with those vows. Thanks for all that, and everything. It was nice to see you. Aw, you're welcome. Yes, you are welcome. And thanks for coming to see us on your wedding tour. Bye. See you soon. Naturally. With everyone at that spot properly greeted, you and your husband began to stroll along to the next one. One of the more boisterous tables had Derek, Terry, and Miranda huddled together. They were celebrating wholeheartedly. Please give me a clip of their voices so that I remember them. Hi, everybody. That pleasant greeting was paired with a little wave. Your friends turned in unison after realizing you were there. Then the trio of buddies lifted cups full of juice and cheers to you and Cove. Sup, and congratulations. Hi, thank you for letting us come. Hey, congrats on you. Congrats, you two. You held out your hand for high fives. Miranda, Derek, and Terry each gave your hand a slap, each ratcheting up the speed of the smack when their turn arrived. I thought they would do turkey hand. Maybe if I fist bump? Yeah! Fist bumps were had with Miranda and Derek, while Terry held up his palm and spread his fingers wide. That was then pressed against your fist. Gobble. Gobble. And you know, it's cool how you were able to make a wedding that seemed fancy, but is still so comfy. Oh, by the way, having the after party here on the beach? His eyes closed seriously, while slowly forming 2 thumbs up. Miranda and Derek chuckled, obviously in agreement with Terry's gracious approval. Cove shyly basked in the affection of his closest friends, sucking it up like a delicate sapling in the sunshine. That's cute. Thanks, and thanks for coming. Come on, dude. I wouldn't have missed it. We had to be. Cove and Gemstone are having their wedding. It's momentous. We're really enjoying the reception. Don't worry about us if you have to go do important bride and groom stuff. I appreciate that. It's weird to say, but we do have important bride and groom stuff to do today. We're greeting all the guests right now. Uh-huh. We'll see you later, though. Okay, bye. Safe travels. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you for everything. Miranda and Derek awed as Terry... One sec, let me try again. Miranda and Derek awed as Terry wiped a dramatic, imaginary tear from his eye. Thanks, Gemstone. Cove skipped ahead, buoyed by the brief but fun interaction, and you went right along with him. Table to table, you continued to greet each attendee of your wedding. From family who flew in from Hawaii to be there, to those who lived right by your place. You appreciated everyone who took the time to come celebrate this day. There was so much love to go around. Every conversation was just as enjoyable as the last. Sorry, quick yawn. The one person you hadn't seen during your rounds made himself known, when Baxter's voice echoed out through the space, amplified by a microphone. Good evening. Thank you all for attending the wedding of Gemstone and Cove Holden. Oh, that's the first time we're announced as a couple. The dance floor bustled with more and more attendees. And over in the seating area, family and friends were catching up over animated conversations. Baxter, that hoe. I'm sorry, that was... What did Baxter do to you? Satisfied that people were having a good time, you decided to... I'm probably pretty... No comment. Just remember to self-care though and stretch and even save. There we go. Don't forget to hydrate as well. Starch and hydrate, everybody. Indeed, starch and hydrate. Stretching makes me yawn too. Oh my goodness. Probably take a quick break. Go sit down and away from the thick of it. You dropped into a chair in the seating area, thankful to put your feet up for a little while and enjoy your reprieve from being the center of attention. Cove came over to join you, taking the spot next to yours, and the two of you got to catch up with the other guests who'd chosen to stay out of the dancing. Some of them were later lured to the floor by a particularly catchy tune, but as others came over to take a breather, you were never short on people to chat with. The merrymaking continued right up until it was time for dinner to be served. All the action must have helped them to work up an appetite, as the guests complied readily. They quickly filed back to their tables, ready for a delicious meal as soon as it was announced. You settled right into your seat at the head table. Cove sat up in his own chair excitedly, reaching over for the napkin-wrapped silverware in preparation. He was ready for dinner. A waitress clad in black from top to bottom came to stand across from you. She had a frosty pitcher of water in her hands. These yawns are going to be the death of me. Oh man. While setting that down at a spot on the tabletop between you and Cove, she spoke out in a friendly tone. Can I get you anything else to drink? Could I have some orange juice, please? Ooh. Juice for me, too. I've got it. I'll get that right to you. I like orange juice. You both thanked her as she spun on her heels and made a beeline to the drink counter. At the same time, more servers began pouring into the space coming from the opposite direction. They were spreading out between the tables, collecting orders from the rest of the guests. One of the darkly dressed figures stood out from the rest to you. With perfect poise and not a hair out of place, Baxter stood on the sidelines to supervise the process. He was well into his work. Servers ebbed and flowed between the tables as drinks were provided to each individual who requested one. That wasn't where it stopped. Soups and salads were then carted out before the main course. Cove took in a satisfied inhalation of the steam coming off the soup. You could catch a whiff of the scent yourself. It was savory and rich. He scooped a spoonful out and dug right in. The rest of the guests followed, taking first tastes of what you had to offer them. Spirited discussions were had between bites. There were plenty of compliments. Your mom, Miranda, and Liz sounded especially pleased with how it came out. They were chatting to the others at their tables about the subtle flavors, and many of your attendees made use of the extra spice that had been made available. Cliff, Kyra, Ma, Terry, Derek, and your own lovely husband each added their own levels of extra heat. For your meal, you added a little spice. It was delicious, and exactly the way you had wanted. Mom's jovial tone carried itself above the rest of the voices. So, how much are we getting here? There's all this already, and the meal hasn't even shown up. I'm gonna lose track keeping count. Oh, I asked. It's a 3-course meal, not counting dessert. Nice. When the bowls were polished clean, the servers began to reappear, clearing the dishes away to make room for more. The main course was ready, and the guests were ready for it. You and Cove had the dish placed out in front of you first. Cove shifted back and forth, even letting out an excited squeak. When the rest of the plates were brought out, you could pick out oohs and ahs about how amazing it looked, and the generous portion size. You even heard mention of the swirls on the dishes by some discerning guests. Very few words were spoken as the dinner truly began. Everyone became fully immersed in their food. It was quite the hit. Guests were given time to enjoy their meals, while they were fresh before the reception events continued as you had planned. Baxter strolled up to a side counter set on the opposite side of the head table. You had a perfect view of it. Casually, he took up the microphone that he'd used throughout the rest of the event to make another announcement. Good evening. From the staff and I'd like to thank you all for being such lovely guests to serve. We hope you've enjoyed your dinner. Now, this mic will be left open for a time, to allow anyone who wishes to make a speech about the couple. You are all welcome to come share memories, words of congratulations, and or your appreciation for Gemstone and Cove Holden, if you feel comfortable doing so. He didn't hog the mic any longer than necessary, placing it back down on the center of the stand as soon as his brief message had been made clear. Baxter directed a soft smile down to you and Cove as he left the space open for others to speak. A nervous rhythm began to play out next to you as Cove's fingers were drummed against the edge of the table. You watched a furrow grow deeper into his brows. He was preparing himself for whatever was about to be said. There would likely be some friendly teasing, and almost certainly he was going to get emotional again. Once the mic was available, the first person to stand was your ma. She hopped right up and made her claim to the front table. Softly, she spoke across the space directly to you and Cove, her words being carried through the air to where you sat. Congratulations once more, my wonderful children. This wedding feels like a dream, as much as my own did when I was around your age. Her head tilted to the side towards the other guests, and began a formal speech. Our gemstone has been a joy to our family's lives, and everyone else's who's met her since the day we were brought together. But watching how she's grown with Cove has been special. The way Gemstone treasured the little stuffed turtle keychain Cove had bought for her, holding on to it for all these years after. Her eyelids rested closed as she let out a sentimental sigh. And I could keep going. There's so many memories. Gemstone can clear the tears from his eyes better than anyone else, when she wasn't the one causing them. Happy tears, of course. It was beautiful. And still is. Her tender gaze shifted over to the two of you once more, signaling the end of her talk had arrived.
I can only hope you'll be able to continue growing together for many more years to come. I love both of you very much." Your husband's eyes had already begun misting. After knowing her for all this time, Cove developed a deep affection for Ma. Hearing that she cherished those important memories the same way you and he did had an impact. She slipped the mic in its proper place, brushed out her bangs, and walked to her seat again on light steps. Your mom brushed down her dress as she stood on her feet and began to walk. This was her chance to take the stage, and she was going for it. When she put one hand on the mic, the tip of her finger tapped the top of it, doing the sound test. The puff of sound echoed out, and your mom was satisfied with that. She lifted her head high, facing the crowd and smiling merrily. "Thanks everyone for coming today, and for all the gifts you brought. I don't know how we're gonna pack all that up to get it to their place, but we'll make it work. Where there's a will, there's a way." She had to lower the mic a bit, already snickering under her breath. "Well, Gemstone, Cove, our families went through a ride with you two being brought together. Talk about a force of nature. You were attached to the hip as soon as you met, and have been ever since. And Cliff almost had a heart attack when we all took that RV out, and Cove had disappeared from his sleeping bag in the morning. And it turned out he snuck into the loft with Gemstone." Oh. Grinning ear to ear, lost in those old memories, she shook her head. "But at the end of it all, I think you were both good influences on each other. Or at the least, you've made each other very happy. That's good enough in my mind. And, we really did need a son in there to round things out." Mom snorted in laughter at her own line. She waved that away with her free hand, wanting to be more serious. When she could muster the even tone she'd been aiming for, your mom finished her speech. "I love you, kiddos, and it's true that you're hard-working adults now, but don't ever forget that your ma and I are here if you need something. Your family will always be there." She had been able to coax out some chuckles from Cove throughout. He was mostly amused over her penchant for jokes than the actual jokes themselves, but the laughter had been shaky with emotion. He really had come to love your mom. With a quite pleased grin, Mom left the mic behind to return to her spot right by her wife. Smooth as silk, Liz rose from her seat and glided across the floor to the speaker's stand. Brace ourselves. But Liz took her time before saying anything, evening out her bangs, clearing her throat, fiddling with the angle of the mic when she did take hold of it. She didn't have a care in the world. That couldn't be said for everyone. Cove tensed in apprehension of whatever she was going to say. He had to know what she was planning. Luckily for him, she did eventually begin her speech and end his suspense. "As I'm sure many of you know, I'm Gemstone's older sister, so one of the very few people who have been around her for longer than her husband." She was smirking already, 2 sentences in. "We're pretty close is the thing." She flicked the hand without the mic into a non-committal half-shrug. "But honestly, Gemstone, if I'd realized you'd be marrying that new kid back when I was 10, I might have had to disown you. A scrawny, grumpy boy who didn't even know how to play pretend right? Certainly not, even if I did joke about it happening." "Hey!" Cove gasped indignantly that she would say such things, but things being said continued on regardless of his objection. "And yet here we are, at your wedding to that very crybaby." Unbelievable. Exasperated at Liz's angle for her congratulations speech, Cove slunk lower in his seat, took his drink in both hands, and sipped at the juice like a furious elementary school kid. Aww. Her head slowly shook. The ends of eyebrows bent, and a less crooked smile came to her face. The tone wasn't silly anymore. "But with all that out of the way, what I actually want to say now is, you made the right choice. He's the one for you." Day after day, week after week, year after year, Cove was there. Even more than I was a lot of the time. Don't get your hopes up about this meaning I'm done teasing you about it. But for today, I want to thank you, Cove. Those big, watery eyes of yours have never lost sight of Gemstone since she caught them. It brings peace to my heart to know that there's another person out there who cares for her as deeply as she deserves to be. Oh. He didn't have another comment then. Liz's grin widened, as if she knew exactly the reaction she'd be getting. Congratulations to my good old baby sister, and my new baby brother. Love you. With that, she tilted the mic towards the two of you, as though she was toasting a glass. At the last moment, Liz had made Cove smile, and his wide eyes were as damp as she had described. Liz daintily left the microphone where it belonged, and returned to her chair, fully satisfied. There was a clattering of silverware and dishes as Lee sprung out from her table. She skipped away, not paying any mind to that. She was too impatient for the chance to talk. Somehow it reminded you of all those times you chatted over the phone. The fun and excitement of sharing what was going on, even when you weren't right next to each other. She took the mic right into her hand, projecting plenty of stage presence standing in front of an audience. My cousin, Gemstone, and I are the same age and got to grow up together. Because of that, I've gotten the joy of watching the story of her and her next-door neighbor, Cove. They were totally just friends, first of all. And then the romance finally happened. When romance finally happened, I was invested in the twists and turns of the tale. So let's just say I was the tiniest bit worried when neither of them had the nerve to propose. If they waited any longer, I was going to offer to do it for Gemstone just to get it over with. She giggled with as much joy as when she first found out the big news. Thanks, Cove, for taking care of that. This couldn't have ended better. I'm your biggest fan. But as happy as I really am about your adventures in love and marriage, the best part for me has been my own relationship with the two of you. Leandra? Leandra took a moment to slow down and express her thoughts with complete honesty. I think that's the first time we've heard her name. Gemstone, you're among my closest family and very best friends. And Cove, you're not just my cousin's husband. You're my friend too, and my family just the same. Congrats on your stunning future together. I love both of you. Ah. Cove had to bite his lip to keep it from wobbling. The earnestness truly touched him. Her high-energy attitude quickly returned, though. Lee dropped the mic down and blew a couple kisses your way, before she swished back to her seat. Derek came out from the seating area to give his own talk. He had a relaxed stance when he grabbed the mic and waved over at the head table. Hey, congratulations again to you, Gemstone and Cove. You found your other halves, and anyone can see it. You're good for each other. You're good to each other. Whether you got married or not, no one would have questioned that commitment. Though it's been a hell of an event, too. Don't mind my voice there. Derek beamed with a boyish charm, looking just like he did the first time you'd met him. Thanks for being my friend. It's been a pleasure to know you two. Derek's heartful appreciation had to awkwardly be interrupted with one quick addendum. Oh, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting that time management thing under control. He took the chuckles from the crowd in good stride and wrapped things up for real. Thank you for letting me talk. Carefully, Derek hooked the microphone back into its stand. When he let go, he hovered his hands nearby for a second to catch it if it fell. When he was sure all was well, he nodded confidently and lightly jogged to his seat. Cove watched the entire exit with a smile growing larger and larger on his face. A beat passed, and then Miranda stood. She gripped at the front of her flowing dress, pulling it from the ground. As she walked over to the mic, her shoulders were shyly hunched up and her head was low. If she wasn't surrounded by tables full of people watching, you might have thought she was sneaking out of bed while trying not to get caught by her parents. When Miranda finished tiptoeing to the front, she gathered up the microphone in both of her hands. Her eyes closed rather than directly facing the crowd. Finish the word there. She may not have been comfortable with public speaking, but her desire to participate outweighed that. Hi. Cove's focus was set ahead, but you caught out of the peripherals of your own gaze that your husband mouthed a hi back to her instinctively. Thank you, Gemstone and Cove, for inviting me. It's been a wonderful day, and I'm so happy for you two. The stiffness of her presentation smoothed out the more she got talking. You're both amazing, and I really appreciate the support you've given me, being there when I needed someone to talk to. You've had such a positive impact on my life. I'm just really lucky to be your friend, and I hope we'll always be friends. Congratulations, Gemstone and Cove. Cove nodded firmly in silent agreement with her wish, while scrubbing at his eyes. Miranda put down the mic with some oomph, then turned around to return to her seat. Twirled around. Her steps were much lighter than before. Terry was waiting there with open arms to give her a squeeze, clearly proud of his girlfriend for doing so good. Her smile stayed bright even from a distance. Terry jumped to his feet with a grin, strolling right over to the counter. He scooped up the mic in one hand and gestured ahead of him with the other. I met Cove and Gemstone in high school. I didn't know them the longest out of everybody, but I could tell they were some cool people right away. Them and Randy were my best group of buddies back then, and we've kept that friendship train going despite all the stuff that's happened. He tapped a finger against the tabletop in time with every specific he mentioned. Graduating school, moving to different places, me and Miranda dating, the two of them getting married, and things about us not being what other people thought they were. Also, we lived through that one summer when it wasn't just the four of us. Sometimes it was the five of us. Right, my pal Baxter? He brought the mic even closer to his grinning mouth for emphasis, and dramatically pointed off to the side. Now we're all here again. You probably hadn't planned for that. And he was right. Having been quietly discussing next steps with a server, Baxter's mouth hung open mid-word. Suddenly being brought into focus outside of his expertly laid schedule knocked him completely off rhythm. Oh, poor guy. Cove barked a gratified laugh, equally as shocked but far more amused. I can read and speak. It's all good. Baxter's head turned in the direction of the sound. His mouth finally closed into a wry smile. It seemed Terry brought the gift of teasing someone other than you or Cove, and it was more than a welcome offer as far as Cove was concerned, especially since it was taken in good spirits. There was something remarkable about being able to include Baxter in your group's merrymaking, the same way as anyone else. Terry nodded knowingly, then casually transitioned into his main point. And I guarantee our friendship is going to stay on track. No matter what, there's no one who could take your places. From me to you, and from you two to each other. Good work tying the knot. Your catches. Terry left his speech and the mic there. He paused to applaud your union graciously, before flipping his hand out as a wave as he walked off. Cove gave a big friendly wave in return. His eyes were glossy. Soon as Terry hit his chair again, Miranda took his arm and happily began whispering to him about the speech. Kyra pushed herself up from her seat and went right to the front without hesitation. Eagerly, she lifted the mic to her lips and said, I can't believe my babies are having a wedding right now! The unexpected declaration sent chuckles rumbling throughout the crowd. Anywhoosies, Kyra continued with a wink and a smile. It was a treat getting to meet Gemstone in person for the first time. Though I already felt like I knew her, thanks to all the stories Cove loved to recount about her. In a pouting whisper, Cove spoke out about that description of events. Whenever I got to visit Sunset Bird, or you visited me, I came to see firsthand more and more what marvelous individuals you were growing into. You bloomed right before my eyes, like perfect white poppies on the hill in your childhood neighborhood. Every moment I've been able to spend with each of you has been a gift. I count my lucky stars that I got to be the mom to such an amazing boy. And Gemstone? The buoyant tone of Kyra's words faded into something softer, sweeter. I'd like to thank you personally for helping my baby make himself a home again. I'm truly grateful for that. Oh. There was a sniffing from your side after that. Cove tugged at the tablecloth in front of him unconsciously, needing to do something. Mom. Congratulations, both of you. I love you. I love you too. It didn't matter that she couldn't hear. She knew. Kyra used the bottom of her palm to wipe her eye, placing the mic on its stand with the other hand. She took an additional moment to look up at you and Cove gently. Then Kyra strode back to her table. Oh. Mr. Holden leaned over towards her and gave 2 thumbs up for that speech. His zealousness made Kyra cover her mouth in amusement and embarrassment. And then Mr. Holden raised out from his seat. The most contentious figure in your husband's early life, who grew to become one of his closest relationships. Cliff took large strides to reach the speaker's stand, but his fingers froze in place before they could grasp the mic. He stared down at it, collecting his thoughts or his emotions, or both. When he was ready, his hand locked around the base of it, and as he lifted the mic up higher, a grin pulled across his face. There was a crinkle around the corner of his eyes. "Hey, sport. Hi, Gemstone." "Hey, Dad." Cove's reply was barely audible. He might not have realized he'd done it. Cove's irises were shaking as he looked ahead intently. "Well?" Cliff's expression turned distant. He was facing the crowd, but his gaze had drifted even further away to something in the past that was long gone. "I remember the first day Cove and I moved to Sunset Bird, when I met Gemstone. I didn't know where my boy was then, or what I was doing, or anything at all, really, as you'll soon be able to tell." He chuckled weakly over the self-derisive comment. It didn't do much to lighten anyone's mood, including his own. He remained wistful. "I was sitting around on a curb when Gemstone strolled up the road, heading home. I knew her, or I knew of her. I'd met Pamela and Nolani already." "Nolani?" "Talking to them is how Cove got away from me." Cliff shook his head, trying not to get too lost in his complicated mess of thoughts on those times. "But that's not the point. What matters is that I'd heard Gemstone was their 8-year-old, the same age as my Cove, and that Gemstone was the only one that age in the neighborhood. In my infinite wisdom, I'd picked out a place that wasn't exactly a family-friendly community. It was mostly a bunch of retired vacationers." He gritted his teeth and placed a hand to his forehead, feeling the sting of that day as if it was fresh. "And speaking of, did I mention it was the start of summer break when we moved? What was my little boy gonna do now that I dragged him out there? I wanted him to have somebody to play with, somebody he could talk to. I wanted him to be happy." There was a heart-wrenching crack in Cliff's voice as he spoke about what his feelings had truly been. At that moment, everything was going wrong. It felt like a dead end no matter which way I went, and I was so sure that there wouldn't be anyone for Cove if it wasn't Gemstone. In one more valiant effort to try not to make the mood of your wedding too heavy, Cliff gave a goofy shrug. "So I offered Gemstone $20 to be his friend. It's just funny to me." The straight line of his shoulders lowered on each side, like a roof sagging after years of having to stay solid. "Maybe that's not the word. What I'm saying is that all my worries and regrets were at their peak. I was acting crazy, I know it now. But somehow, it still turned out that there really wasn't anyone else for him. Or not anyone better for him, anyway. Nobody else in this world who can be there for Cove the way she can. The sentence remained unfinished. As much as he tried, Cliff couldn't put the words together to express what it meant to him. Inhaling deeply through his nose, Cliff's stance pulled together tall and solid. His dark blue eyes shone with a depth to them as they met with the far brighter blue of his child's. "Son, being your dad will always be the best thing I've done in my entire life. And getting that condo on that street was the luckiest card I ever drew. I bet you two wouldn't have found each other with or without that. I bet you two would have found each other with or without that eventually. But because of it, my kid got to grow up right next to the person who could make him happiest. I can't ask for more than that. And Gemstone, you didn't need a dad with what great moms you've got, but I'm so thankful I still get to be yours. I love you both, and I'll keep loving you for the rest of the time I've got." Tears streaked down Cove's face freely. He didn't fight their falling. "I love you too," Watching you and your husband from where he stood, Cliff got misty-eyed himself. He reached to wipe his cheeks, completely forgetting there was a microphone in his hand. Cliff set it down, shyly waved over to the two of you, and stepped away. He was then able to rub at the ever-growing tears. No one spoke or even moved as Cliff returned to his spot. When he was seated, Kyra reached over to give his back a pat. He had done good. Then the mic sat there, untouched. None of the attendees wanted to pick it up after where it had just been left off. There was going to be the final speech from your guests. Oh, that was going to be the final speech from your guests, you were certain. Cove's breath was shaky, taking in everything. A weepy smile reappeared on his face once more. Oh, I can read. A weepy smile reappeared on his face, the more it sunk in just how much he was cared for. He leaned against your side, pulling at the tablecloth and burrowing his face into your shoulder. Your eyes were glossy, and you brushed Cove's hair back soothingly. Slowly, deliberately, you stroked the smooth green strands of hair without disrupting Cove's position against your body. When a voice was amplified out across the whole space once more, it was expectedly your planner, giving his appreciation for the cooperation again and announcing the closing of the speeches. But rather than leaving the microphone on the counter, he strolled up to your table with the device in hand. Before we shut this off for the night, would either of you like to give your own message to your loved ones? Oh. Cove lifted his teary face up to acknowledge Baxter, pausing to sniffle. I'll do it. I'd like to say something too. I should at least thank people for coming out. Of course. Here you are. Cove used one hand to scrub his eyes, and the other to accept the mic, drawing it in close. Too close. His murmur crackled uncomfortably loud, and Cove's arms sprung out straight instinctively to get the noisemaker away from him. He winced, before much more cautiously lifting the mic towards his face. He cradled it in both hands, and his gaze dropped to the ground. Thanks, everybody. Really, seriously, His eyes closed completely as he paused to bite his lips. So glad you got to be here. And all those things you said were... There was a cracking strain to Cove's voice that wasn't caused by technical error. He was choking up. Each word had to be pushed out with dedicated effort. Really nice. I love you. As rapidly stuttered as it was, what he meant to express came through to you and the rest of the people there to hear it. Cove's earnest affection. In a fumbling motion that screeched out even more unintentional feedback, Cove passed the mic to you. His now free hands moved to cover his mouth. As you rose up from your chair, your eyes casting out over each individual in the crowd, you had to accept the bittersweet notion that this truly was a special occasion. You had no idea when everyone you cared for would be gathered together in the same place again, or when you'd even see some of them next. Sounding very similar to the end of the game as well. You wondered if Cove had been cognizant of the same thing while he was speaking, that this message had a weight to it, that this was your last big chance to share your thoughts with them. All you could think to say was, I'll always be grateful to have each of you in my life, to get to have each of you in my life. And that brought the speeches to their last sentimental note. Your eyes remained focused ahead as you extended your hand out for Baxter to take the microphone, and lowered back down into your seat. Applause erupted from table to table, and Baxter grinned approvingly. Perfect. He took the microphone back with him as he rejoined with the other staff members in order to give you and Cove some space to yourselves. When the clapping subsided, emotions remained high. Further conversations were tentative and hushed for a time. But eventually the happy chatter that frequented your reception filled the air again. It was an evening of good food and good company. The evening continued to slip by in a dreamy haze. Before you knew it, all the attendees had finished their main courses, and the dishes had been swiftly cleared from the tables. In spite of this, everyone remained rooted in their seats. It was no secret that there was more to come. People were waiting eagerly for dessert, though none of them could match the vibrating anticipation of your husband. It was time for the cake. But before the big event, you had something else up your sleeve. The servers returned to bestow the extra treats to your guests. Truly delightful trays of fancily plated pretzels were delivered to the tables and distributed to the guests. The dishes had been carefully selected to match your color theme. There were some befuddled expressions as guests saw what was being served, but they were outshone by Cliff's enthusiasm. He was immediately taken with the idea, before he'd even taken a bite. The servers vanished from the floor with impressive efficiency, allowing the wedding cake to take center stage. Sat on a center table was your fully realized creation, a two-tiered rustic-style gold masterpiece. You were pleased to see that your guests were as smitten with it as you and Cove were. "It's so charming," Terry gasped. "Are you really gonna cut it? That cake must have taken an eternity to put together." Mom grinned. "That's beautiful. It's so cool that you went with gold instead of just white. Totally unpredictable." Baxter beckoned for you and Cove to come forward. You rose from your seats as one and crossed the floor to the display table, where a waiting server offered the cutting knife to you both. Man, this wedding is making me tired, apparently. I can't stop yawning. It's a big day, after all. The two of you took hold of the handle, hand over hand, so that you could make the incision as a team. Together, you hovered the knife over the lowest layer of the cake. You glanced at Cove, who smiled wryly at you. It really was almost too beautiful to cut, but just almost, and your guests were waiting for their portion of the delicious cake. Carefully, so as to preserve the structure as much as possible for as long as you could, you pushed down with the knife. It slid through the cake easily, leaving a smooth cut all the way through. You and Cove drew the knife out, then made another cut in order to create a neat triangle of cake. The server produced a plate, ready for the first slice. With a bit of shakiness in the motions between the two of you, you slipped the knife under the piece and transferred it to the waiting plate. The first slice was done. You gazed at the neatly cut cake with pride as you set down the knife. Cove beamed. It was a lovely moment. Now you couldn't wait to share the wonderful cake with your guests. Cove let out a thrilled squeak as he picked up the provided fork. Each aspect of it had been painstakingly planned to suit the occasion as well as your tastes. Now, at last, it was finally there for the eating. Oh, you were looking forward to having a slice. And in short order, servings of cake were set down at each table, a neat triangular slice in front of every guest. As the crowd dug in, along came discussion on the dessert. "Ooh, it's tasty! I love the filling." Your cousin wasn't the only one in the family who was so captivated by your cake. Ma uttered a dreamy sigh after each bite. "Delicious." Cove stopped shoveling buttercream into his mouth long enough to give his own praises. "I'm really glad we went with something that had fruit. There was no way it could be anything but great with that kind of flavor. But it's better than that. It's actually amazing." We got the bottom layer is red velvet with, I believe it was, what type of filling was it? Was it ganache? Mint filling, I think? Or maybe mint icing. Anyway, like mint and red velvet for the bottom layer, and then the top layer was it dropped out. Can you guys hear me? Are we back? I think we're back. I know it dropped out for a second, but I think we're back now. Can you guys hear me? Wow, well, am I back? I'm assuming I'm back. Yes, we hear you. Okay. Where did I drop out? I was describing the cake that we chose. That was funky though, too much coveness. Eh? What happened? Oh, it like overloaded the... Anyway, so the bottom tier of the cake was red velvet, stream crushed because of marriage too good. Marriage too good. Indeed. Yeah, so the bottom tier was red velvet and mint, I believe, and then the top tier was lemon cake with strawberry filling and frosting. So it was like a strawberry lemonade top tier and a red velvet mint bottom tier, 2-tier cake. You admired the cake, committing each beautiful detail to memory before you took your first bite. You closed your eyes as you let it melt on your tongue, relishing the light and fluffy texture alongside the silky frosting. Each bite was savored until your plate was cleared. By that point, Cove was already on his second slice. Heck yeah, we got 2 delicious types. I'm having one of each. By the time the meal was officially over, Cove had not only devoured 3 full-sized slices of cake, but he double-checked with Baxter about what would happen to any leftovers. Heck yeah. Baxter had needed to reassure him that any remaining sections of the cake would be wrapped up to go home with the 2 of you. It was pleasant to sit back and relax for a while, giving your feet time to recuperate from a long day. But the lull did not last for long. Newly fueled by cake, the party was beginning to start again. The celebration was able to continue in earnest. Derek, Lee, Terry, and Miranda got the dance floor going. They took turns pulling silly moves and cheering each other on. Liz sung along to all the songs she knew whenever an old favorite from your life growing up together came on. Your 4 parents made their table base camp and cycled between catching up with other family in town and rejoining with one another. They spent much of the time trading sentimental stories about when their babies were just, well, babies. Cove's one uncle showed off his classic magic tricks to celebrate the day. Your husband was far more enthusiastic about the stunts as a 23-year-old adult than he was as an 8-year-old child. During the entire time, more casual photos were snapped of the best and funniest moments. One was when Miranda got Terry to hold up her dress so she could do a handstand. You couldn't wait to see them fully developed. And many guests had been generous enough to bring presents that you and Cove might need. You'd finished opening each one and offering your thanks. Seafoam green towels, dishes, a water purifier, a framed picture of the sea with the words, "Life's a beach," were just some of your takeaways for the day. Oh, hey, Sky. Did yours just come back? Oh, no. Sorry about that. I don't know what's been going on. There have been some storms recently, so might be, some instability on that. Welcome back. The most common gift, however, was the safe bet of simply giving cash. You'd never seen so many $20 bills in one place. Your family's had a sense of humor. They give us a bunch of $20 bills. That's really funny. It's okay, just confused me. Valid. Of course, the relationship that began with someone offering money would reach its head with that repeating. Your husband caught a glimpse of the silent amusement in your face. His mouth curved into a smirk as he watched you. It's really funny. You'd bet money that he knew exactly what was on your mind. Like a $20 bill. Good evening. This distinct voice of your planner caught your attention. He approached with a polite wave. The people you know are as welcome as you are. They've treated the staff, including myself, well throughout the reception. Cove puffed right up in hearing Baxter compliment the people he's close to. He could easily have been mistaken for a proud parent. As pleasant as he kept the pleasantries, Baxter was certain to get to the point of the conversation quickly. I'm here to say that you've got the space for a few more hours, but there are no more planned events or responsibilities on your shoulders. The day went off exactly as intended. Wow. He pressed his hands against the bottom of his spine and leaned his torso back against them to stretch. For a single side word, Baxter let himself clock out of the work mindset. Hallelujah. But the metaphorical bell rang, and he returned promptly to providing his service, standing up perfectly straight and pointing his toes forward. You're free to simply enjoy yourselves however you want with the time that's left. Of course, I'll personally put out any fires if they do appear. You two don't need to worry about anything. Cool. Thank you for all of this. You really were the perfect guy to do it. Baxter's brows curved, his eyes softened, and even pausing to steady himself didn't hide the emotion rich in his voice. That means a lot to me. Oh, it was so wonderful putting this together with you. The smile already prominent on his face warmed further. Baxter ran his hands down his shirt, smoothing it out in a casual, fluid motion.
You're very welcome. It's been a joy working with you two, truly.
The mood was light all around, until the feeling really hit Cove. He shifted in place uncomfortably, not knowing how to proceed from the point that was reached.
So, does this mean we're friends?
Ah, like a child. Hey, wanna be friends? Heck yeah.
Oh.
He blinked rapidly as his mouth closed into a tight line, before saying a full thought. Baxter always needed a second to recover on the rare occasion that something knocked him off his game.
Well, that's your call, I'd say.
Despite the prompting to talk, Cove couldn't put together an answer.
I think we're friends.
The two pairs of eyes from the two very different men set on you, though eventually moving to look at one another. Smiles returned to both their features. As Baxter would say, it was settled. To solidify the friendship, Baxter offered you his hand to shake once more. You gladly reciprocated. Your hands gripped together affectionately, lifting up and down once. Next, his hand went towards Cove. He held it out evenly with confidence, not from a want to be self-assured, but he was actually certain that they had a closer relationship now. Cove looked down at it, considering, but he ultimately raised his arms and shoulders, in a motion that was both an awkward shrug and an invitation to hug instead. Aww, yay, Cove! The lopsided grin he gave was contagious, and Baxter took hold of Cove while positively beaming. Baxter was only tall enough to bring his chin to Cove's shoulder, but he rested it there comfortably. Ooh, they're buddies! Cove chuckled in bemusement. It took a long time, but he had been won over to Baxter's side. He gave his new friend a pat on the back before they ended the embrace amicably.
I hope you enjoy your post-wedding bliss as long as you can. But when life settles back down to normal, we should have dinner. I know some good places.
That'd be nice. I guess we'll call you? Definitely. We'd love to get together again.
Perfect. And congratulations on your lovely day.
He then quite literally bowed out, tipping one foot back and inkling forward. I think that's supposed to be inclining. And inclining forward. He kept his head lifted up with that curled grin you'd become so used to, featured prominently on his face. Baxter left the two of you there, disappearing into the crowd of figures all in black, to help keep the event running as smoothly as possible. You thought back to the very start of that special day, when Baxter promised he'd congratulate you when it was over. That gave his parting words an extra sense of finality. But it wouldn't be a real goodbye. This time Baxter would be a part of your lives for as long as he was welcome in it. You believed him in that. With the staff busy and the guests mingling with each other, you and Cove had a moment completely to yourselves. My brain can't make sense of this. Had a moment completely to yourselves. The first moment completely to yourselves since the wedding first began that morning. I don't know, my brain was doing flip-flops. I can't tell what's... You knew for certain that you could relax when you caught Cove pulling into a big stretch. His torso twisted to one side as his hands rose up as high as he could get them. He had to fight against the crisp, fitted shirt he was buttoned into, but Cove was persistent. His eyes had been closed when he worked out of... Oh boy. Alright. His eyes had been closed when he worked out the last of the jitters he'd carried throughout the day, but his gaze landed on you as soon as he finished. There was a radiant warmth in his expression as he spoke to you with an eased heart. Is there anything you want to do before it's over? I'm happy with whatever you're thinking. Could we find a quiet place to sit together?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been a long day.
You took his hand. You and your husband snuck away from the crowd out to the fringe of your reception. There was a collection of empty tables that you could settle into. After you picked a seat, Cove grabbed hold of the back of a chair and scooted it nearer. He also flipped the angle so that the front was directed towards you rather than its side. Cove leaned down into it, and his legs brushed against yours in the cozy arrangement of your placements. You had a perfectly unobstructed view of his face. Slow, calming music drifted from the center of the scene, but you'd gone too far to catch any of the distant conversations still happening. It felt as though you and he were in your own world.
Well, Mrs. Holden, congratulations on your successful wedding.
Congratulations to you too, Mr. Holden.
And if you're wondering, my plan is to be the last person who gets to congratulate you tonight.
He waggled his wiggly eyebrows, being intentionally silly. You giggled. He was adorable. He sighed softly, and his shoulders lowered comfortably. But Cove suddenly perked back to attention when something struck him.
Though, I could just say it again when we get to the hotel room. I'd definitely be the last person to do it then. That's one of the perks of being married. I pretty much always get to be the first and the final with you. You for me too. I'm good with that.
Me too.
Thank you.
In his glistening eyes, you could see how treasured you really were. Cove whispered heartfelt words.
Oh, and I also get to say this for sure. See you tomorrow, Gemstone.
I'll see you tomorrow too. Cove leaned forward towards you even more and let out a tiny thrilled squeak. He seemed like he had something on his... Cove seemed like he had something on his mind. You gave him an encouraging smile. He chewed on the inside of his cheek as the silence grew longer. You remained patient, communicating your willingness to listen through your eager eyes.
Gemstone, there's something I want to say.
The sentence faded out as his lips clammed up in a trembling line. He had to force it back open.
I wanted to say it without crying, but your vows were so nice to hear, and I love them, and thank you for doing that.
Simply remembering the scene had gotten the tears flowing again. He couldn't help it. You're so precious. He sniffled once, then twice, and then he grinned back at you. Cove, is there anything you're hoping for in our lives after this?
We've got our place, our fish, each other. That makes me really happy, but is there something you want to talk about? I want to listen.
You should have talked about what you want in this regard before you got married.
You shook your head.
The feeling was mutual. Oh. See, before you get married, you should have discussed stuff like this. You should definitely know each other's preferences for what you want in the future involving, like, big things like starting a family before you get married. So it's just the chance to talk about it, but... What was that? Hoping for in our lives? Yeah, we should enjoy our marriage for a little bit first. You shook your head. The feeling was mutual. A life with Cove was more than you could have asked for. He was truly the perfect man to spend your life with. Now that we have a minute, I wanted to mention how you looked. His stance tensed, blushing in his finery. The spotlight had turned back on, and Cove was getting stage fright.
Do you like it?
Yes, you look incredible. The cut suited him, and you loved how the colors worked for his complexion.
That's great. I'm really glad you think so.
You could tell from his blush that he had ultimately enjoyed your attention. His posture relaxed, and he seemed much more confident in the clothes again.
I like yours too. Your dress is nice. Really, really, really nice.
Thank you. You let yourself quietly enjoy his company. You leaned forward to rest against his chest, and you settled in comfortably, wishing you could stay right there forever. Lovingly, he stroked your back with the tips of his fingers. It was so warm. But then you heard your husband sigh wistfully.
It all went by so fast. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't mean the wedding. I don't only mean the wedding. It's everything. Where did the years go? When did you and me become grown up?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Though,
His spirits carefully rose again as he spoke more lightly.
I feel pretty good about getting older. Not being a kid anymore, 'cause I'm doing it with you. Before we could only pretend to play adult, and I was bad at it. Liz was right on that one, unfortunately. And now we're at our wedding. I know what it's like to be an adult. Kind of. You just do it and keep going. I guess it's as simple as that. I wish I could have figured that out from the beginning. No, actually, I'm glad everything went the way it did.
I am too. The song that blanketed your discussion was at its final chorus as the sun's rays drifted further away.
Night would fall soon.
It was almost time to go. Too soon you would know what the ending note of your wedding was. The final glance, the last word. Those thoughts swirled in your mind until Cove brought you back to existing in the present where you belonged.
I think our life is really nice.
Not letting either of you get lost in contemplation again, Cove suddenly clapped both his hands against your shoulders with the utmost seriousness.
You know, if you ever want to have another party like this, I'll do it. It can be every year, multiple times a year, whenever you feel like it. We'll keep Baxter in business forever.
Ah, these are all such good answers. If it's with you, I'm up for anything. Tiny, delicate water drops pooled in the corners of his eyes. Cove let his hands travel from shoulders up to touch your face. He cradled you tenderly, never wanting to let go.
What did I do to get to be with someone who's there for me? Someone who honestly cares about me? Well, I don't need an answer, really. I'm just grateful. I love you too, Gemstone. Always.
The end! Oh! Aw, that was so lovely. All the art was so beautiful and all the choices were so fun. Heck yeah, that DLC was awesome. My heart, this game, your playthrough was. Aw, potato. Well, that was absolutely beautiful. What a lovely way to round out the experience. What a beautiful DLC, what a beautiful game. I highly recommend playing even just the base game for yourself. The base game is free, so potato if you play it again. And if anyone else wants to play it, I do recommend it. It's a lovely time, and you could explore any of the paths that we missed, or the different options that you can see, the different outfits and personalities that Cove can have. So I recommend checking out the other paths for yourself, but that is going to be it for this game. So as of next week, I'll probably have a new game set up. We might test one out that I'm not sure of. It's something that I've had in my Steam library for just ages, and my old computer wasn't good enough to play it, so I think it's called Memoria. I don't know what type of game it is, so we might check that out, but I might also have to make sure it's, like, you know, safe for streaming and stuff, but not fully decided, so we'll see, I guess, when I start next week, but this was beautiful. Thank you as well, Potato. This was absolutely wonderful, so thank you so much for suggesting it. Such a beautiful journey, such a beautiful story, gorgeous art, adorable characters, just what a pleasant time. Absolutely wonderful, so thank you for suggesting it, and for going along with it. And for your encouragement and teasing. They were very fun to experience along. But yeah, so we're gonna start something new next week. Yet to see what it is, but probably a potentially smaller game, some sort of puzzle game, something like that. So we'll see how it goes, but thank you so much for joining me in this story. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and farewell.